After World War I, President Woodrow Wilson tried to set up an organization called the League of Nations. It was designed to be an organization to stop international conflict before it starts, and when it did occur, to end it swiftly. However, this didn't work out so well, as Wilson underestimated the diplomats and heads of state of Europe, and failed to consult the US Senate, who would be the ones ultimately voting for it. The League would be created, but without the United States joining it. It would be seen as a failure after it failed to prevent the Second World War. Despite the League failing, the idea of an international body that strove for peace among nations was still desired by many countries, especially after World War II. The United Nations originated out of a declaration drafted by President Franklin Delano Roosevelt and Prime Minister Winston Churchill. The members of the United Nations were to pledges itself to employ its full resources, military or economic, against those members of the Tripartite Pact and its adherents, with which such government is at war. It began its life as a military alliance, and 26 nations signed this initial declaration. As World War II drew to a close, nations around the world scrambled to join the United Nations, out of fear that they would be left out of the biggest military alliance in world history. In April of 1945, the members of this alliance met in San Francisco to draft a charter for a post-war organization of the same name. The United Nations of today would officially come into existence on October 24th, 1945, with 51 members. As decolonization occurred over the course of the 20th century, more and more nations would be admitted. There are 6 main bodies that make up the United Nations. The base of the UN is the General Assembly. Whenever you hear about some random country saying something crazy, it usually comes out of this body. This body is similar to the lower house of Congress in that it creates budgets and approves new members to join. They are also responsible to elect the administrative head of the United Nations, the Secretariat. The Secretariat is headed by the UN Secretary General, who is elected to 5-year terms. Their job is to administer the various bodies of the UN and serve as the public face of the organization. The true core of power for the United Nations lies in the Security Council, which is a body of 15 nations that are responsible for maintaining peace and security. The Council has 5 permanent members, which originally contained the United States, the United Kingdom, France, the Soviet Union, and the Republic of China. The Republic of China was replaced by the People's Republic of China in 1971, and the Russian Federation succeeded to the Soviet Union's seat in 1992. The other 10 members of the Security Council are elected by the General Assembly for 2-year terms, with 5 new members being elected each year. Countries that are terming out are not eligible for immediate re-election. These 15 members are divided between 5 groups: the African, the Asian Pacific, the Eastern European, the Latin American and Caribbean, and the Western European and Others group. The 5 permanent members of the Security Council are divided amongst these groups. The US, the UK, and France are included in the Western European and Others group, leaving 2 rotating seats. Russia occupies one of the Eastern European seats, leaving 1 rotating, and the People's Republic of China occupies one of the 3 Asia Pacific seats. The Security Council has its own president, which rotates between members on a month-by-month basis, each member getting to hold the presidency once every 15 months. The Council votes on potential military actions and is the only body of the UN that has the ability to pass binding resolutions. It is also one of the most highly criticized organs of the UN. Though all 15 members of this council have a vote, the 5 permanent members each have a veto and therefore can prevent any action made by the committee. This is why there are so few major military operations by the United Nations, and none of these operations are made directly against any permanent members. This deadlock became inevitable after the Korean War, when the Soviet Union protested the actions of the Security Council by not showing up to vote. This led to the only UN action against a permanent member when they approved a US-led invasion of Korea to stop the Soviet-backed North against the South. Since then, the Soviet Union, followed by Russia, never abstained from using their veto.